The body is picking up information from here to the ends of the universe across time. She has data for us. We just have to learn tools or techniques to get to an understanding of how to sense that and interpret that data, and then merge that with the mind. The more I practice actually listening to my body wisdom in all these different ways, the better I'm able to make more effective decisions. The mind trying to make decisions is often programmed by the past. It doesn't have the necessary information to be able to find solutions or actually sense what the needs are to move forward.
For episode 52, my guest is Daniela Plattner, who is a facilitator, coach, teacher of 5 rhythms, and the founder of The Future is Feminine. Her work centers around using movement to unlock clarity, creativity, and confidence. At the heart of this conversation is the relationship we all have with our bodies and the difference it makes to our quality of life. We recorded this late last year in Bali. This episode marks the end of our second series, which has been consistent for the past 40 weeks. We on the team need a break as we listen into our healthy feminine and masculine. So we'll be back in 12 weeks this May with series 3. Whilst we are gone, please do listen back over the 52 episodes and catch up with any you have missed. And please keep telling friends about the show and posting about it on social media so that the visions, explorations, and actions shared in these conversations can spread further around the world. In fact, if you could each email 10 people that you think would enjoy the show and tell them about it, this would be amazing. If you have loved this series and received something from it, please do support our crowdfund. We still don't have enough support to cover our core costs, and so if you want to be a monthly patron, this is the most helpful way you can give, although one-off donations are also great. You can do this by going to www.thefutureisbeautiful.co/community. And if you want to work with me over these months, you can join Presence Mentoring, which is my one-to-one intuitive leadership program, which you can do from anywhere in the world. Or come to Spain in May for Wild Grace, a heroine's journey. All the details are on www.amisha.co.uk. This podcast has led me on such a beautiful journey over these weeks, and I love connecting with you all. I feel each week I've learned so much from our guests, you, our listeners, and our team. Thank you for spending your time with us. And thank you again to our wonderful team, Lucy White, who writes our show notes, Mary Chan, who edits the sound, and Lorraine Cantrell, who is sharing and publishing the episodes. Please do be in touch and share what's moved you. We hope to have a summer gathering this year, or at least regional small dinners, so we can create a network of listeners who can become friends. If you want to host this in your local area, let us know. You can write in at connect@thefutureisbeautiful.co. I hope that you enjoy this episode. Welcome to The Future is Beautiful, with me, your host, Amisha Gadiali. On this show, we explore the weave between politics, spirituality, creativity, and sustainability. It's time for us to move beyond silos and into an integrated way of being. Every one of us has ideas and personal experiences to share that can lead us to a brighter future. This is the revolution. Despite the challenges we face as a global community or the pressures that we meet in our daily lives, when we stop and dare to dream, to ask ourselves the big questions, and to share what we are already doing, we create the future that we wish to wake up for. That future is beautiful. Daniela, welcome to The Future is Beautiful. What an absolute pleasure to have you here on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
When I saw a picture of you, I felt like you needed to be part of this. And then I was really overjoyed to realize that we had all these mutual friends and all these layers of connections in our work as well as our lives. And I love that you bring this embodiment into the world. And I would love for you to tell us what that means to you and why it's important.
Well, when you first reached out to me, I felt an immediate opening and excitement and breath. And for me, that was a signal of full yesness for doing this, for connecting with you. And for me, through my greatest struggles and my greatest joys, I've come again and again back to the body as my greatest compass and ally for navigating decisions and choices and life events. What it means to me, embodiment, there's a lot in there. But essentially at the core, embodiment or being embodied is a relationship between the mind or the intellect, some cases the left hemisphere or the prefrontal cortex, with the right hemisphere, the body sensing, and an integration between these two worlds, which are ultimately not separate at all. They're completely interwoven, and it's a constant feedback loop. This conversation and dialogue between the quote mind and body together, for simpler reductionist terminology, mind and body integration. And also for me, what it means to be embodied is to take action in alignment with our integrity, our hearts. It's again another level of the mind and the body being together. It's moving forward through the world, taking action that is aligned with how you actually feel and what you actually think. There's not this discrepancy. So again, all of it comes back to an integration, and for me, it's a lifelong exploration. I don't call myself an expert or a master in it at all, even though I've been studying different embodiment practices since I was 8 years old, particularly 5 rhythms, which is a movement meditation practice. It's been a beautiful journey. It's my lifelong inquiry for diving into the intelligence of our bodies, reclaiming that, learning how to listen and interpret those messages in order to walk our paths in more integrity in service of our individual lives, our communities, the earth, our body compass.
Beautiful. I love how you talk about it as a way to support making decisions in integrity, because I feel like that's one thing that comes up for a lot of people. You know, a lot of my clients, I don't know whether I want to do this or I want to do that, or, you know, and trying to sense where the noise is coming from and like where that real felt sense of yes comes from.
Yeah, for me, decision making has been at the crux of what I keep coming back to in the realm of embodiment, because I've suffered so much from indecision and overwhelm, analysis paralysis, where there's so many options and the mind is constantly looking for all these different possible solutions or routes to take, and then there's too many choices that we end up just being stuck and choosing nothing. Mm-hmm. Like all these traps of the mind, but yet the body inherently and intrinsically knows what to do at every single moment, because the body is picking up information from here to the ends of the universe across time. And she has data for us. We just have to learn tools or techniques to get to an understanding of how to sense that and interpret that data, and then merge that with the mind. For me, I call myself a recovering indecisive.
I can relate to that.
And I've just found that the more I practice actually listening to my body wisdom in all these different ways, the better I'm able to make more effective decisions. And I've noticed that also with my clients and the teams and communities that I work with and people around the world, it's again and again, there's all these blockages around decision making, because the mind trying to make decisions is often programmed by the past. It doesn't have the necessary information to be able to find solutions or actually sense what the needs are to move forward. It has to be, for me, what I've realized is it has to be an integrated mind-body approach to decision making. And so many of our problems in the world stem back to decision making from a purely analytical, rational, egoic mind space.
Mm-hmm. What made you at 8 years old so interested in the body?
I think like many children, I was naturally in my body, played a lot of sports, did a lot of dancing. I was a competitive figure skater early on at that age. I grew up in New York City. I was at a restaurant one day and sitting next to this woman wearing all black and black biker boots, and I was also wearing black biker boots, and I started playing footsie with her underneath the table and started talking to her. So I was an outgoing little 8-year-old, and she ended up being a woman named Gabrielle Roth, who's the creator of 5 Rhythms, which is a movement meditation practice or embodied leadership practice. And she was telling me about this practice called 5 Rhythms, this free-form dance practice. And it happened to be that the one school or the one class for kids in New York at that time was at my ice skating rink. And I went to that class, and I remember it was one of my first epiphanies in that class where I was dancing the first rhythm of flow, which is fluid, continuous motion, where there's no beginning, no ending. And the teacher said, dance around the room as if you're gliding on the ice. And it was the moment I realized, oh my God, what I'm doing here on this dance floor translates to what I'm doing out there on the ice skating rink. Essentially, how I'm moving here is helping me live my life out there. There's no bridge between the dance floor here or the dance floor of life. And that's what I've come to learn over and over and over again throughout my life, is the dance floor is a training ground for life skills. It's a chance to practice who we want to be, to slobber and to strut. It's given me the confidence to walk into boardrooms and be the youngest person and the woman who's running the meeting. And it's given me so many of the tools. And I think I've also come to the practice of embodiment, or the exploration of embodiment, and have this deep passion for it because I've struggled so much around my body. My mom she is one of the most brilliant people I know, badass, pioneer, leader, lady in her field. And most of my life, she was 350 pounds and completely disconnected from her body, from a lot of trauma. And she read every book about dieting and body psychology, but had a lot of difficulty actually integrating that information. I just became fascinated with how we can learn through the body, how we can become more embodied. And I had a lot of body shame. My father told me so much shit about my body growing up. I have a lot of love and respect for him, and he also covered me with beliefs around being too fat and being not enough and shaming my body. And so to work on peeling back those levels that pain has been what has guided and informed my purpose. And I know my pain around my body. Had eating disorders, I've had a lot of challenges, I've had autoimmune diseases stemming from a lot of different unhealthy ways of treating my body and relating to my body. And they're universal. I know that I'm not alone. And for me, I found that my greatest pain plus my greatest joy equals my purpose. So my pain around my body plus my joy around movement and creative expression has served the evolution of my purpose.
That's beautiful. And I love that you just randomly played biker boot footsie with Gabrielle Roth. And And it feels like from hanging out with you that you've had a lot of incredible people in your life right from your childhood, being in New York and being inspired by these amazing people with big visions and big hearts.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I remember so clearly my first ever Five Rhythms experience. I had like quite a lot of resistance to going because English people have a cultural resistance to a lot of expression things and non-alcohol things. And so I had one of the most beautiful nights of my life that first time I went to Five Rhythms. It was in those slower waves. I discovered this dancing that I hadn't done since I was a child, with so much joy and spinning around, kind of ballerina-esque. And it was like my body had been craving that for all those years, but you don't do that in nightclubs with minimal techno or drum and bass. It's like, and then actually I remember in the chaos section, we were all dancing in these small circles and we were having so much fun and such high energy. And I remember feeling like, wow, in all those years of clubbing that I did, of going to big dance parties, probably in 10 years of that, there were like 2 or 3 moments through all of those nights where there was this much connection and joy and like group kind of chaos. And the rest of the time, those nights were, I don't know what they were filled with, but feeling that level of connection with movement, yeah, ever since then, it's been such a big part of my life.
Beautiful. Yeah, people have so many breakthroughs. Someone came to me after Unconventional Life who was in my Five Rhythms class there and said, he's a lawyer, and he said, I used to only dance for other people. This was the first time ever I danced for myself. It's like, yeah.
When I explain it to people, I say to them, it's like dancing in your bedroom by yourself, but with other people.
Right.
Like it has that freedom quality that you have when you just put on music that you love and you dance around your house.
Totally. And that's the first rhythm of flow, which is about connecting to yourself. That's the foundation, that once we connect to ourselves and connect to the earth, the flow, the feminine, then we're more grounded and stable to be able to connect to someone else, which is staccato, which is about connecting in partnership. And then once we move through the staccato, which is the lines and the edges and the angles, then we can go into the chaos, which is about letting go of your head and being part of the actual group field. Release and surrender and not knowingness and blurred lines and edges, just dancing in that mystery, shaking it all out. And then we can transition into the lyrical, which is more about our relationship to society. Bigger picture, it's light, it's airy, it's connecting dots in novel ways, and opening and jumping around, being funky, and just letting go of even letting go. Just being. And then we can transition into stillness, which is our connection to the totality of everything, to oneness where there's no separation and we just are in our full bodies in this, what Gabrielle Roth called sweat your prayers. It is a prayer state to be moving in this way, to be creating shapes of our lives, just shapes of everything. And so many insights and ideas come from that place. And it's a beautiful map of the relationships, the levels of relationships, self, partner, group, society, earth, world, universe. And it is that freedom of just dancing in your living room, alone, or your bedroom, and then you bring that to dancing with others. Yeah, it's a beautiful practice for surfacing whatever the contents of your mind or your emotions and then moving through. Like Gabrielle said, the only way to move on is to move through. So you really like dive into the difficulty and dive into the sadness and dive into the anger and dive into the joy and just like put the body, she also said, you put the body in motion and it heals itself. She is so badass. I fucking love her.
Absolutely. And I love that sometimes I go to dance and I get this like, I don't want to dance with anyone kind of feeling.
Totally.
It's not just that you go and it's like this beautiful thing and da-da-da. It's like sometimes you go and you meet your resistance, you meet your pain, you meet all of these things.
Yeah. She also said it takes discipline to be a free spirit. It takes discipline to show up. Like it's a practice, like any practice. Sometimes you don't feel like having a hard conversation with your partner or going to yoga class or doing some admin task. It takes practice when you show up despite the resistance, and then there's breakthrough. Oftentimes. I have so many times where I don't feel like it, but even if I just get that one glimpse of release or insight or even just exercise, it's worth it. It keeps teaching, just keeps teaching. I trust so deeply, trust the rhythms, trust this map. Gabrielle went around the world studying how people transform through movement, from hospital settings to shamanic settings to prisons. And at Esalen with a person who created Gestalt therapy, she worked with him and found that when people naturally move for the sake of healing, they move through these 5 rhythms, these 5 essential patterns of energy. It's a map of transformation. And there's classes all over the world. For me, it's like exercise, meditation, therapy, party, all in one.
And community.
And community, exactly.
That you can show up somewhere else, a new city or a new place, and go and join the dance. And that, yeah, you're already in community, you already share that with everyone there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to see. You can take it as light or as deep as you want. Sometimes if you want to really observe yourself and grow through the practice, to see the patterns that emerge. Like if you said you resist other people, like is that a pattern that shows up in other areas of your life?
For sure. Yes.
I'm with you.
I like to be alone.
Yeah.
A lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And did you find that when you're on the dance floor, you're more on the outer edges of the room or toward the exit, or you're someone who more goes in the middle of the room?
It's different every time. There are definitely dances where I just want to be on the edge, and there were ones where I want to be everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the patterns, it's interesting. So you're someone who like moves around. You shift it up. So there's some people who just every single time it's right in the middle of the room, center. And what does that say about you? Or if you're someone who's always by the exit, because there's a free-form dance practice, you can dance however you want, but the patterns reveal themselves very clearly on the dance floor.
Yeah.
It's cool that you dance.
Do you feel like is there a strong difference between ecstatic dance and 5 rhythms?
Yeah, huge difference. They're both free-form movement. There's no right or wrong way to move. They're both no talking verbally, just talking with your body, which is the majority of communication, and sober, conscious dance practices. What's different about 5 rhythms is 5 rhythms, there's a very strong container of safety to really drop in. There's also a map. The map is the rhythms. So the music guides you through these 5 essential rhythms: flowing, staccato, chaos, lyrical, stillness. Your body naturally moves through these patterns, through these different ways of moving. And it's a map. It's a map of how energy moves. It's a map of transformation. So there's architecture. And a lot of people find, especially people who are not used to conscious dance or would never go to an ecstatic dance because they wouldn't know what to do with themselves because they're just overwhelmed by the infinite options and it's just uncomfortable. Whereas in 5 rhythms, there's actually structure for freedom. Unlike ecstatic dance, in 5 rhythms, there's a teacher who's guiding, who's providing verbal cues or suggestions or prompts or tools that enable you to get out of your head and get into your body.
Yeah, I always have that feeling with ecstatic dance. It's more of a party, like more of just a big celebration of dance and connection. And with 5 rhythms, I feel like I go on a much deeper inner and outer journey.
Yeah, because there's guidance and a supportive structure to enable you to go deeper. Whereas an ecstatic dance, you can just show up and do what you've been doing forever. You can do that same like pumping fist, club hopping, looking for someone to pick up kind of thing. Whereas five rhythms, it's not about that. It's a meditation in motion. It's not about picking up people, and it's not really about contact improv. It's like around really being with yourself in motion, with others in a deep way. It's been so helpful for me. My whole life, it's been the most stable and consistent anchor point amidst all the change. When I've had the biggest questions or the biggest challenges, I put them on the dance floor, and at the end of every five rhythms, I have insight, I have clarity, I know what's next. Just like everything is revealed. Not everything, but a lot is revealed on the dance floor.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want everything at the same time. Yeah. Then we wouldn't need to be here and keep going. So, just the perfect amount of revealment every dance.
Revealment. It's a nice word.
Is it even a word?
I don't know. It makes sense.
Yeah. How often do you dance? Is it like every week you will go to a group five rhythms if you can, if you're in somewhere where they have one? Or is it more free than that?
It depends where I am in the world. So yeah. I've traveled a lot for the past 8 years. My work takes me all over the world, and to find a consistent practice is more challenging. When I'm in New York, I'll go at least 1 to 2 times a week, Tuesday nights and Sunday nights in New York City. And then I'll at least a couple times in my own room, even if it's just for 5 to 10 minutes. I know that the mornings that I wake up and I just even walk, like getting out of bed and dancing my way to the bathroom in the morning, just a little bit of breaking out of the conventional ways of moving between the computer and sitting at desks and sitting at the table and laying down and walking, just breaking out of those habitual movement patterns, just liberate my mind and just remind me of who I am. Like even when we come into kindergarten, we have something around 300 basic gross motor movements that we do. And by the time we leave kindergarten, after 1 year, we have approximately 100 gross motor movements that we do. It's like the schooling system programs our bodies to be more and more constricted when we have so many different natural ways of moving. And because the body and the mind are so intricately connected, when we move our bodies in unique ways, we actually are enabling us to think more creatively, to see the world in novel ways. So even just 5 minutes, even just 2 minutes. I often am hired to go into conferences or corporate settings to just do creative, connecting, energizing experiences with people. And I have often 5 to 10 minutes. And just getting people standing up, even just for a few minutes, and moving their bodies in fun, different ways, brings so much life and excitement and energy and ideas to the table. So whatever we can do, even though just a little bit is enough.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I used to be like a big kind of heavy head on a body that was quite uncared for. Just like dragging this head around. Through my journey with yoga and with five rhythms, now I love to play at least one song in the morning and just dance my little heart out before I go out into the world. And whenever once the dance is like in your body, it's like in your body. Once the yoga's in your body, it's in your body. And then actually you can't stay still for the whole day anymore. Your body is just asking, I need to stretch, I need to move, I need to find a different axis. I love that. Like I loved that experience of when my body came to life.
It's funny hearing you right now use the word even dance. I use it too because it's dance. I'm just struck by how dance can throw people off, back to the resistance thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have all these ideas of what dance is. And, oh, I'm not a dancer. Because we think, okay, choreography or ballet or whatever association we have with the word dance and being a dancer. And from just hearing you now and the way we're moving literally while we're having this conversation with our hands, with our bodies, with our shoulders. It's
eyes.
With eyes, with faces. There's so much more. It's yes, it's dance, but it's just moving. It's moving as bodies, like how we're meant to move, which we've been doing since the beginning of record human consciousness. We've been dancing and singing, and dancing is just a way of life. How we walk through the forest, how we walk to get our coffee, like everything is a dance or a way of moving, being. So again, when you said breaking the silos, breaking these constrained kind of definitions, I'm here to break the barriers around how dance is perceived. Because I've seen dance work or movement work or creative movement work in very serious meetings with the city of Miami on strategizing for sea level rise to help people, politicians and real estate developers, think about the future of the city and using movement to get people in that state. The power of movement or dance can inform everything we do. And I feel like it's so sad that it's just reduced down to, ooh, dancing. Like, it's actually so serious and so useful and so valuable. And even the people who are the most resistant who come to dance, like senior leaders at Fortune 100 companies, like literally the most resistant, in a suit, mostly middle-aged white men. There is an opening. After a bit of context and creating the right setup and the right reasons why, there's like so much appreciation for dance. There's so much value behind it. It's hard to talk about. It's fun to talk about it with you. Do you know what I'm saying around like, what's coming to mind for you around like, how it's perceived, especially around your work around breaking down silos?
Yeah, I mean, and even just thinking about how I felt about going to the first like 5 Rhythms dance. and I see it with everything. It's a real tragedy of the way of our cultural framing of things, that everything gets so stripped of its depth and meaning, turned into this kind of thing that we can see that it's like something that other people do. So even when I think about yoga, you tell someone, oh, I teach yoga or I do yoga, and they just see like a downward facing dog or like a handstand on the beach in a bikini or something. It's not that. Of course, it is that. It includes that, but it is something so much bigger. Yeah, I wonder if we could give ourselves more permission to explore and to be open, to understand that nothing is what we think it is. So, for example, I don't play like rugby or American football. And I could conjure up an image of what that means. You know, I've watched enough American movies to like know what a jock is and like and what that posturing means. And of course, what they're doing there is something completely different. It's a poetry, it's a dance, it's a movement. It carries so many other things that I will never understand unless I was to try it. I'm not going to try that one.
You're so resistant. You're doing that thing again.
Yeah, because I asked my buddy, do you want to play American football? My buddy says, nah, I'm cool.
Nah. Meh, which is the sound of the gut.
Yeah.
Meh.
Yeah. So I ask myself, do I want to learn to drive a scooter? We're here in Bali, where everyone rides scooters around, and it's kind of one of the most normal ways of getting around this place. My body says, that's terrifying.
But yes, I want to. I was talking to a friend of mine. His name is Rob. Hi, Rob. And he was saying that for him, riding a scooter, or he rides now a motorbike, is a conscious experience. You have to be one with the bike, with the road. You have to be fully present. The minute you start thinking about something else, boom, you didn't see that thing coming, boom, you go a little bit to the side. And it's this exercise in presence and consciousness. And then you dance with everyone else on their scooters. I never thought about it that way. I thought about it as transport.
Yeah, it's a meditation in motion. It's a dance.
Exactly. And it really is embodiment, especially if you've got someone on the back and you're moving together with that person and the road and bike.
Right. And I love how you checked in with your body and you felt the fear that comes up and also excitement around it. With fear, it's actually in 5 rhythms. It's the first rhythm. It's the first emotion. This 5 rhythms is also a map of emotions. It's fear, anger, sadness, joy, compassion. It's a map of how emotions move. But that fear, there's the shadow side of fear, because there's a shadow and light to everything. The shadow of fear is this anxious, overwhelmed, neurotic, where it becomes, when the energy of fear, which is just pure energy, becomes stuck in the head, it becomes like paranoia and agitation and, oh my God, what am I going to do? You hear that in the breath versus the actual light or the essential nature of fear is excitement, is intuition, is alertness, like a cat with its hair standing up or antennae up. It's like a sensitivity to an environment where we can move around with our eyes completely closed and we're just so alert and attuned. And that kind of fear that's bridging with excitement that you're talking about could be tremendously powerful for you to actually literally ride with.
Absolutely. And for me, that fear is also locked in trauma. I've had a few accidents. So my body knows that pain. And so then that also goes, no, I don't want to. But then I also know that the only way for that to be fully clear is to say, I hear you, trauma. And I've done a lot of work with that, especially with my right leg, my right knee. I can feel, that excitement and that ecstasy and that pure joy of being one with that bike and being out on the road and knowing that I was able to change that story with my body as well and feel, strong and connected and in that dance.
What you're bringing up is so important, and it points to the challenges of listening to your body, because trauma is so real and so embedded at a cellular level in our bodily knowing that oftentimes because of trauma we can't actually hear clearly the messages of our body, the messages of our intuition. I was in this river yesterday by this waterfall here in Bali, and there was all this garbage, and I couldn't really relax into the flowing river because there was this garbage. I'm not saying trauma is like garbage, but there's an interference with the natural flow of information. And so sitting with it, acknowledging it like you're doing with your knee, all the work that you've done around it, and actually giving ourselves a chance to sit and feel the trauma so that it can move through is literally the most essential way to heal the trauma. Because the more we suppress it and avoid it and deny it, the more it just builds up and builds up, builds up. And then we're complete talking heads with these traumatized bodies who are so intelligent and they just want to be listened to. Trauma is just like calling for our attention, but often there's not a lot of tools or safe support to really move through the trauma.
Absolutely. And like one thing I know about my body and, you know, my knee. So this knee has been run over by a 4-wheel drive pickup truck.
Whoa.
And also I did fall off the back of someone's scooter and I had stitches on my kneecap.
Wow.
So it has some stories around this, like what can happen on the road.
Oh my God.
And I've known not to push it, that it's not about just overriding the sensations in my body and being like, we're going out there on the road and conquer this. Mm-hmm. But actually, I know it's time. I know it's time. It's not actually time yet, but I'm mentally preparing and I'm emotionally preparing. I'm going slow, and in a couple of months when I'm back in Bali, I plan to really learn. And it's going to be my focus as I arrive. So I'm giving it the space and the preparation that it needs.
I'm curious when you say that you know mentally or emotionally you're preparing, because you're a very embodied lady in my eyes. I sense, I feel, because I feel it in my body. My body trusts your body. It's just a sense.
Yeah.
How do you know that it's time? Or mentally, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But how do you know? How do you sense into your knowing?
I just feel it. How do you explain how you know? There have been other moments in my life where I've known it's not time. Just the thought of it brings so much fear that I'm just going to go out and do something stupid because I'm not grounded enough in readiness for something like this, which is a pretty big deal to me because I also didn't learn to ride a bike until I was nearly 30 at Burning Man.
Great place to learn.
So you know, so then it's also layered in that. Like I didn't grow up on a bike. I've been scared of the bike my entire, like a push bike. I've been scared of my entire life too. And so there's layers of this. There's trauma in the body, and then there's like a lot of fear. And I've been working a lot with what the core of that particular fear is, and what conditioned patterns it comes from, what relationships it comes from, what it was I didn't get that I needed, all of these aspects of it. So I've been working with these things for a long time, but I get the sense now that story's finished. So now, as I'm on the back of a bike, I'm imagining driving the bike and I'm feeling the road as a driver, whereas before I was always a passenger with no mental capacity that I would ever be driving a bike. So now that's one mental way that I'm preparing, is that I'm driving the bike from behind, just like feeling it. And then I'm also allowing the emotions to arise. Yeah, I'm really being present with those emotions in a way where I'm allowing them to release fully and move through into something else. So in this particular story, the physical motion of riding the scooter will be the last part of this journey. But I'm just, because it's a big deal to me, I'm doing it this way around.
I love how you're preparing literally through visualization or acting as if.
Yeah.
And feeling what that feels like to get in the zone before actually grabbing the handlebars yourself. You've done so much work. And I love how you're also taking such a multidimensional approach to healing. It's not just the knee, but it's the stories and the patterns and the conditionings and what the lessons are that are necessary. It can be so hard to see when we're in the sadness or in the pain, to see how actually valuable it is in serving, in teaching the difficult emotions, how actually they're such beautiful, powerful teachers. Something I'm working on in myself is judging, or rather not judging, or my more challenging emotions as better or worse than the easier emotions. Like, what if sadness and anger and the feelings associated are equally as, quote, good as like joy and love and peace?
They are.
They are. They are.
Yeah. Especially when they're not directed at other people or like directed at yourself, but when you're able to experience them.
Why do you think so?
Why do I think that they are? Because so much has moved through, as you said, as Gabrielle Roth said, through me really welcoming and befriending those emotions in myself. And before I did that, they had so much power over me. And not only did they have power over me, but they had power over other people. Sadness became manipulation. My anger became control. All of these things. I mean, we see it everywhere. I don't need to do that anymore because now my sadness is just my beautiful sadness. And I just cry and I feel it. And I feel a sense of aliveness with it. And actually, this word, in Sanskrit, there's this word ananda, which means bliss. But it's not like, you know, bliss bunny bliss. It's a bliss of all being. When I feel rage or when I feel sadness, I feel that bliss. And because I know mostly how not to turn that outwards onto someone else, where it then creates more drama and more reactivity and more mess, then I'm able to taste the purity of the emotion.
The purity of the emotion. Like, again, that flowing river without the garbage of the judgment on it. Just really sensing. It's back to the energy of it, the ways. It's been really fascinating to study how, through 5 rhythms, how emotions actually move. I just finished my heartbeat teacher training, which is an advanced level of 5 rhythms on the emotional map. We've just been diving so deep into moving through these emotions. Like, how do they live? How do they breathe? And all these universal patterns of how the emotions in their essential nature express themselves and how they actually are in service. Like anger. Anger is that staccato, which is those lines and those edges, and anger actually enables us to defend what we love. That strong, clear boundary that we need to protect what we care about. Like, no! The healthy expression of anger, rather than the toxicity or the shadow of anger, is like the suppressed, you never know when you're going to just freak out kind of thing. It can be so dangerous. Sadness, how actually the beauty of sadness is that it softens us and connects us more deeply to what we love and what matters to us. It's very grounding and heart-opening, rather than like the shadow of sadness, which is more woe is me and victimhood, and then can be manipulative, struggling, suffering. Yeah, it's finding the beauty, like, and just trusting that it takes a reprogramming of the mind to be able to trust that the energetics of these emotions are actually really beautiful. I was talking to this guy I met the other day here who's Russian, and I was in a really just sad, pissed off mood, and I told him that, and he's like, yeah, it's very normal for Russian people. We just are like that all the time. And I was like, really? I was like, how do you navigate that? And he's like, we drink vodka. It's so sad that we don't have healthy coping mechanisms for moving with and through the emotions, and finding that there are teachers. And because there's so many difficulties facing challenging emotions collectively, it's causing a lot of avoidance there's a compass of reaction that I tend to reference in my work, and it's based on the fight, flight, or freeze model. On the fight spectrum, if you imagine a cross, the fight spectrum, there is attacking yourself or attacking someone else. And then on the freeze and flight spectrum, there is avoiding or withdrawing. So we tend to, in more difficult situations, jump to these response mechanisms: avoid, attack self, attack other, withdraw. Because we can jump into these states, it becomes incredibly difficult to actually sit with discomfort, and then we make impulsive, reactive, ego-informed decisions. And we see that happening in a lot of high-level places where there's a lot of decision-making power about the future of the world. If there was a better capacity to sit with difficulty in a embodied way, I think we would be able to make a lot more effective decisions for our future. It requires a lot of healing at individual and collective level. And there's little things that we can do to support us to get there. Like taking a few deep breaths, or waiting to respond, or dancing.
Yeah. I feel like I want to take a few deep breaths with you.
Thank you. Good idea.
Yeah.
Hello, this is Amisha. We are just taking a little break from the conversation here. On behalf of myself and the team, I want to say thank you for being part of creating a beautiful future. We make this for you so that we will all have the vision, wisdom, and activism we need at this time to weave a new narrative. Can you help us with this? You can do that by making a monthly donation to the podcast to cover our costs. Just the equivalent of a fair trade banana you might eat or a chai latte you might drink whilst you listen to this will make a huge difference to us. Head to www.thefutureisbeautiful.co/community to become a monthly patron. And the other thing is to tell your friends about this podcast so they can tune in too. Send them a message or post on social media and let them know what you love about it. And whilst you're at it, leave us a review. And now, back to the conversation. Thank you for your loving beauty.
So tell us about the future of feminine and the beautiful work that you're doing there.
The future of feminine, like the future is beautiful, has a soul of its own. The future of feminine, it's an international leadership program. We have retreats and workshops and trainings and events around the world. We mostly gather to explore these ideas of the feminine and masculine, and how we can become more integrated in these aspects of ourselves for all genders. It's a leadership development training of sorts, a co-creation, exploration process. And ultimately the intention is so that we're all more authentically ourselves beyond the conditioning, and we move into more service for the world from that place. So leveraging our power to create more positive impact. It's very embodied. It is continued learning. I'm constantly learning. It came out of being on a beautiful property in Italy, next to a volcanic lake, next to hot springs, and walking barefoot on this land, this lush Italian land where the Etruscan people that used to live in caves, and feeling so inspired and just having this sense of, I need to bring women here. I need to bring women here. Every night I dreamt about it. The land would show up in my dreams, and I would see people there. And then the next day I would get a phone call, and it was someone I saw in a dream, and it was kind of a magical process. And I really questioned myself because I came out of corporate consulting and leadership coaching and 5 rhythms, and most of what I know through the feminine is through the body, through 5 rhythms. I'm not a feminist scholar. I've never considered myself just someone who just works with women or is particularly around the feminine. But the name came in a dream, and I just had this, it was like this soul was calling me to do everything I could to create this container for people to come together and see what's there. And so I resisted it so much, and it brought up a lot of my shit around my own relationship with the feminine. And then literally 9 months later, to the day from getting the vision for it, we birthed the first Future of Feminine International Women's Leadership Retreat with 40 women from 30 countries, ages 17 to 75. IKEA, Google sponsored senior leaders to come. We had artists and activists and philanthropists and CEOs. And it was 7 days. It was a blasted open process, incredibly powerful. And I fell into a postpartum depression afterwards. After that, I literally got my period the moment after I said the closing words in our final circle. And I fell onto the ground afterwards, and I was just crying. And I went into this hole. And I broke up with my boyfriend, and I moved, and I didn't want to talk to anybody. And I was like, oh, I hate the feminine. I hate people. I never want to do this again. Fuck it all. And I, despite all odds, for some reason, deep within me, I knew I had to keep going. I pulled myself through it. And I realized that I was judging that postpartum depression, that hole that I fell into, as being bad and being wrong. But actually the feminine was just giving me a sense of a groundedness and a deepening and a slowing and an inwardness. That's not happy, happy, joy, joy, execute, create, leadership lady. It's just a different energy. And I learned deeply from that. Yeah, we went back and did it again the next year and closed the container, and I've done the events around the world with men and women and all genders. And a lot of what people say they take away is actually a strengthening of their masculine, a healthy masculine, which is really cool to hear.
It's beautiful. It sounds like it's been a lot about listening for you, like listening to this vision. I think sometimes people think when they see someone doing something really beautiful that feels really like on purpose and connected, that is a easy, smooth, joyful, expanding experience. My experience and what you're sharing is that it takes you through these waves, through these rhythms. They aren't all pretty, but they're potent. I really admire you having the courage to keep listening and to keep showing up for that inner direction.
Thank you. It did take a lot of courage. I was like, to keep going, it's like, is it my ego, just a drive and a determination, or is it actually in service and to sense? Yeah, it's, I think, just being leaders and being path carvers or being entrepreneurs, it can look like so easy and seamless and on purpose from the outside, but purpose is informed by pain and struggle. Overcoming and moving through and staying with. And yeah, it's not like a straightforward linear. It's very non-linear, our paths that we're taking. I resisted so much the Future of Feminine, even that brand, because I was afraid of being bucketed into this kind of feminist, which is, I have nothing wrong with feminism at all. There's a lot of associations and stereotypes around it, which I feel like can take away from actually the power and depth of the work. And I remember earlier on when I got the name, The Future of Feminine, I did a survey online of feminine and masculine traits. It was created in the late 80s. And I came out as like 85% masculine. I was like, fuck, I'm leading this thing called the future of feminine. Who am I to do that? I'm such a fucking hypocrite. But hypocrisy is great fuel.
Yeah. I can relate to that with this podcast. The future is beautiful. People think it's optimistic, full of that kind of hope. And actually, I'm really into holding that whole spectrum that includes all the pain and the depth and the struggle, as well as the possibility. I sometimes question, like, why is it called this? What is that journey? And am I doing that? Because I don't know if I have a different definition of beauty, I guess, to what most people think beauty is.
Mm-hmm. For me, beauty holds all of it, just like joy.
Yeah.
Joy is not just happy. It actually can hold the anger and hold the sadness and hold the challenge and hold all of it. Beauty is all of it. I remember in college we learned about it. It was like a museum course or curation course. It's like, what is beauty? And we went through this museum and there was a little crumpled up piece of white paper and there was a black painting just in a frame and there was art that was like meh and ugly. And I came to the conclusion, I was like, oh, it's all beautiful. It's beauty, it's everything. And I think that's a beautiful embodiment of our conversation here today. It's kind of going into more of the murky places. And it's beautiful. I think it's really beautiful that we can go there and also be so full of love and curiosity in that process.
Yeah. Yeah. What is this healthy masculine that many of the people that have come to the future of feminine have tasted and embodied? What does that mean?
A healthy masculine that we talk about and that a lot of people say they're walking away with is clarity, is a confidence or an assuredness, conviction, a sense of direction, more of those lines, more of the linear strength. So it's not associated with gender at all. It's an energy. So people are walking away with a 12-month plan on their business and their goals. They're walking away with clarity on their values or their leadership statement. They're walking away like motivated to actually create that speech that they've wanted to create, they were afraid to create before. So those are some of the traits of the healthy masculine. We do this one map. It's actually created by Neelima Bhatt, who came and facilitated at our first retreat. She wrote a book called Shakti Leadership, Embracing the Feminine and Masculine in Business. She calls it the Polarity Map, and we do this one exercise with it where you write the healthy feminine, whatever your association is, and there's different ways to get there. Healthy feminine, and then the unhealthy feminine. And then you write the healthy masculine and the unhealthy masculine. You have this long list of both, and then you look at what is a particular unhealthy feminine trait that you have. So for me, one is I can get overwhelmed and flustered. What is an unhealthy masculine trait that I have? Sometimes I can be very controlling of outcomes. So what is the remedy? How do I heal that or work with those unhealthy traits? Well, the unhealthy feminine overwhelm is cured. The remedy is looking to the healthy masculine. So clarity, confidence. So overwhelm is remedied with clarity. They need each other, the integration. Whereas the unhealthy masculine, say it's what I said, being controlling, is remedied by the healthy feminine, which might be a flowing. And so it was beautiful to see how that the unhealthy feminine is balanced by the healthy masculine, and the unhealthy masculine is balanced by the healthy feminine. We actually need each other. It's not amplifying the same. They're working together. They're dancing together. So we do deeper work around that too.
Love it.
I'm thankful for you for doing this. For me, you embody a beautiful integration of feminine and masculine in your own unique way. Like everyone does it in their own unique way, but just your sense of purpose and action, and also sensitivity and listening. It's like, it feels really good to be in your presence. I wish all of you could literally be in her presence and you get to experience the voice transmission. It feels good. Thank you for having me and feeling this connection that it needed to happen, and being flexible with our schedule to make it happen.
Oh, absolutely. It's that trust that we will find the right moment, and also that energy that just gives you that, and we'll also make it happen. So it's like a sweet balance. Thank you so much. This really has been a wonderful conversation, and I feel that my own energy has gone through these waves as we've been discussing all of these things. I feel like what you're holding, the embodiment actually of what you're holding, is a palpable experience for anyone in your presence, anyone that listens.
Thank you, mirror. Beautiful mirror lady. Blessings, blessings. May anything that is shared here, any little nugget, be valuable or useful for all of you on your paths.
Absolutely. And for everyone to connect more with you, what is your personal website? And then the Future of Feminine website?
The Future of Feminine is thefutureoffeminine.com. And my personal website is DanielaPlattner.com. DanielaPlattner.com.
Brilliant. And we'll post links to everything that you've mentioned and to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This is so fun.
Thank you for spending your precious time with us. As always, you can find links to everything we mention in this episode, download our book, and discover so much more over on the blog. We don't believe in selling you things you don't need through this podcast, and so it's made possible with you, our community. If you loved this and would like to fund our show with a monthly donation or join our online group to connect with other listeners, please visit www.thefutureisbeautiful.co and click on Community and Support. Please also share with friends, hit subscribe, and leave us a review so we can grow. Those gold stars really help others find us, so these ideas can spread. Here is to us, creating a beautiful future together. The Future is Beautiful is made by an all-female team working voluntarily or on reduced rates until our listener support grows. If you have been moved by anything you heard here, please donate the equivalent of buying us a drink. All donations make a huge difference to us and will allow us to keep doing this and remain advertising free. Until next time, I leave you with this question. How will you create beauty in the world?